If I had known that hug would be the last one that felt anything close to real, maybe I would have held on longer. She stood in the doorway with that soft, practiced smile, one hand on the handle of her carry-on, the other brushing her hair back like she was just going off on some work trip, not leaving behind a 17-year marriage without so much as an actual conversation. "I think I just need a little space," she said. No argument, no drama, just silence. We stood there, the space between us like a canyon neither of us had the courage to cross. Her suitcase clicked against the wood floors as she walked out, and I followed like a ghost. Not pleading, not chasing, just existing in her wake. Outside, the morning sun was too bright. The Uber driver barely glanced at me. She waved as she got in, like she was going to visit her sister for a long weekend, not disappearing from our life together. At the airport, just before security, she turned and said, "By the way, I listed you as my emergency contact." I blinked. That was it. No, "I love you." No, "Call me." No, "We'll talk soon." Just that, like I was a checkbox on a form. Her backup plan. Her just in case. And then she was gone. The first few days passed in a fog. You tell yourself she's just away, that she'll be texting any second. You check your phone too much. You reread old messages, trying to find some kind of clue you missed. I cleaned the kitchen. Twice. Rearranged the tools in the garage. Cut the lawn with a precision that would make a groundskeeper cry with joy. I thought about texting her, but didn't want to seem needy. Didn't want to look like the guy she thought needed fixing. Because that's what she said before leaving. That she needed to fix things. But she never said what was broken. The days stretched, then curled into nights that didn't feel real. Our bed felt too big, too empty. I started sleeping on my side of the mattress like I was waiting for her to come home and climb into hers. She didn't. The worst part wasn't the silence. It was the almost calls. The moments I'd see her name in my contacts, my thumb hovering. But what would I even say? "Are you okay? Are you alone? Are you still my wife?" A week passed. Then another. Still no emergencies. Still no call. At one point, I thought maybe something had happened. Maybe something had gone wrong, and I hadn't been contacted yet. Maybe she was in a hospital somewhere. Maybe she'd lost her phone. I checked her Instagram. It had gone quiet. Sure, but not gone. Her stories had a few vague posts. A mountain view. A glass of wine on a table for one. Or maybe not for one. She was still out there. She just wasn't reaching out. I got used to the quiet in a way that made me hate myself. I started filling the space she left with white noise, podcasts, late-night YouTube rabbit holes, the hum of the dishwasher. Anything that wasn't just my breath and that hollow silence she left behind. I told myself I wasn't angry, that this was just part of the process. People go on solo trips to rediscover themselves. Sometimes you need to step away to see things clearly. But then I remembered that hug. It hadn't lingered. It hadn't felt like goodbye. It felt like strategy. Like she'd practiced it in the mirror. She didn't call. "No, I miss you." "No, I'm safe." "No, I still want this." Nothing. It was the kind of silence that felt violent. And the only thing keeping me grounded was the little note she left stuck to the fridge. Not a love letter. Not even a message. It was a checklist of bills and a line that read, "Don't forget, you're still my emergency contact." It was written like a reminder, but it sounded more like a warning. Or maybe a threat. Would she even pick up if I called? Would I still be her husband? Or was I just her fallback plan? I don't know what broke first, the trust, the hope, or the illusion. All I know is that something cracked that day at the airport. And every day since has been me listening for a phone call. That never came. The call came at 11:47 p.m. I remember the time exactly because I was lying in bed, staring at the crack in the ceiling drywall, wondering if it had always been there. My phone lit up beside me, and for a second, my heart stuttered. Her name? Her voice? Maybe she'd finally decided to call. But it wasn't her. It was Ashley, her best friend. Or former best friend? I didn't even know anymore. The relationships in our life had become collateral damage lately, blurred, distant, unacknowledged. I hadn't spoken to Ashley in months. Maybe longer. I let it ring until the last possible second before answering. "Hey." A pause. Then her voice, uncertain. "Hey. Sorry. It's late, I know. I was checking in." I sat up in bed. "Is everything okay? Did something happen to her?" No, she said quickly. "Nothing like that. She just asked me to check on you." That landed heavy. Not her calling me. Not a message. but a third party, deployed like a wellness check. A favor. She asked you to check on me. I repeated. Ashley sighed. Look, I'm not here to defend her. I just wanted to make sure you were, she hesitated. You know, functioning. I wasn't sure how to answer that. Was I functioning? Was getting out of bed and pretending to work considered functioning? She could have called herself, I muttered. I told her that, Ashley said, her voice suddenly less gentle. I told her this was a cop-out, but she said it'd be too hard. I laughed, dry and humorless. Too hard for her. A moment of silence passed. She didn't give me much, Ashley said softly. Just that she was going somewhere quiet. That she needed space. She tell you why she needed space from her husband? No. She tell you if she was alone? Another pause. That was all the answer I needed. She's not telling me much of anything, Ashley admitted. But she asked me to call. So here I am. I closed my eyes, rubbed my face with one hand. You don't have to keep doing this. Ashley's voice dropped, quiet but steady. I think I do. I didn't know how to respond to that. A part of me wanted to hang up and bury the phone under the mattress. Another part wanted to keep her on the line until the sun came up. I hadn't realized how long it had been since I'd heard someone's voice who wasn't a coworker or customer service rep. Are you sleeping okay? She asked. I gave a small snort. Does laying down and staring at a ceiling count? I'll allow it, she said. There was a beat of shared quiet. And then, just before she was about to hang up, she said something I didn't expect. You don't sound okay. I swallowed hard. I'm not. It slipped out before I could filter it. I hadn't admitted that to anyone yet. Not even myself, really. I kept waiting to feel something specific. Anger, grief, betrayal. But instead, it was just this shapeless ache. Like being wrapped in wet wool. Heavy, damp, and inescapable. Ashley didn't fill the silence. She let it breathe. I figured, she said. You always used to tell me the truth, remember? Yeah, that was back when things made sense. Do they ever? That made me smile, the first real one in days. You were always the philosophical one. Someone had to balance you out. You used to be all spreadsheets and home maintenance. God, remember the week you got obsessed with learning how to rewire the garage lights? I got electrocuted. You barely got electrocuted. I smelled my own hair burning, Ashley. We both laughed, for real this time. And for just a few seconds, I wasn't spiraling in my own head. I wasn't the abandoned husband or the guy wondering if the person he loved was sharing a hotel bed with someone else. I was just me. And she was just Ashley. When the laughter died, she spoke again, quieter this time. Look, I'll keep calling. If you want me to. Not for her. Just for you. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything at all. But I didn't hang up either. After she ended the call, I stared at the phone, the glowing screen fading to black in my hand. My wife hadn't called me in 16 days. But her best friend, who I hadn't spoken to since last Christmas, had just stayed on the line with me for almost an hour, asking if I was eating, sleeping, functioning. I lay back in bed, eyes wide open in the dark, replaying the conversation. Ashley had sounded different. Not just polite. Not just checking a box. She sounded concerned. And maybe, just maybe, a little betrayed, too. Maybe she wasn't as in the loop as I thought. Or maybe she was, and she was hiding it better than I ever could. But there was something about her voice that night. The way it softened when she said my name. The pause before she hung up. She could have just texted. She could have just ignored the whole thing. But she called. And I wasn't sure if it made things better or worse. All I knew was, for the first time since my wife left, I didn't feel completely alone. The third call came on a Tuesday. I was halfway through reheating a sad excuse for dinner. Leftover chicken that had turned dry overnight, paired with instant rice that refused to cooperate, when her name lit up my phone again. Ashley, just in case. That's what I'd saved her as after the first call. It felt honest. She wasn't my wife. She wasn't a therapist. She wasn't even really obligated to care. But she called anyway. Hey. I answered, wiping my hands on a dish towel. Hey, she said. You sound better. Do I? A little less like a guy living in a dark cave. Well, the lights are on, so I guess that's progress. She chuckled, and I swear I could feel her smile through the line. I wasn't sure if I should call again, she admitted. But you did. Yeah. I guess I figured, just in case. I leaned against the counter. That's becoming your thing. What is? Just in case. It's how you're always explaining these calls. She paused, thoughtful. Maybe I like being the emergency contact too. That hit harder than I expected. Ashley and I had always gotten along, but never like this. She was my wife's friend, not mine. The kind of friend who'd come over in yoga pants and drink Pinot while they swapped podcasts and talk shit about their coworkers. And now she was asking if I was eating enough protein. I made chicken, I offered. Real chicken or chicken nuggets? Let's not split hairs. She laughed. Good enough. At least you're feeding yourself. I also watered the plants. So clearly, I'm thriving. Another pause. Softer this time. You're joking more, she said. Am I? Yeah. The first time I called, you barely said a word. Well, that first call felt like a charity drive. She didn't take the bait. It wasn't, she said. It isn't. The calls kept happening after that. Sometimes she texted first. Need a distraction? You awake? I swear I'm not stalking you. Sometimes I answer quickly. Other times, I stared at the screen until the message went dark and wondered what the hell I was doing. Why I was talking to her. Why I was waiting on her calls instead of the woman I married. And then, when the silence got too loud, I'd text back. It became a rhythm. Not quite routine, but reliable. There was something about Ashley's voice, how it was always a little raspy, like she'd been laughing too hard or crying too recently. She never pried, but she always knew. She never defended my wife. Never made excuses. Never lied. That made it worse and better. One night, I asked her how much she knew. About the trip, she said. About all of it. She hesitated. I could hear her shifting on the other end, maybe curled up on her couch or pacing in her apartment. I know she was frustrated, she said finally. She felt disconnected. From me. From everything, I think. Herself. You. Even me, lately. Then why not talk about it? Why just leave? Ashley sighed. She said if she talked to you, you try to fix it. She's not wrong. I told her fixing things isn't a crime. That silence returned. Familiar now. We never rushed to fill it. She told me not to tell you much, Ashley added, voice quieter now. That it was better this way. That if you knew details, it would only make things worse. So she gets to vanish, and I'm just here? With crumbs? I didn't say I agreed. I sat down at the kitchen table, the cold of the wood pressing through my t-shirt. You know what hurts the most? I asked. Ashley waited. It's not even knowing if I'm supposed to be angry or worried. Like, is she out there sleeping in a hammock journaling about self-growth? Or is she fucking someone who calls her baby? Her silence was answer enough. I felt a flush of guilt creep in, but it was too late. I'd said it. Ashley cleared her throat. She's not journaling in a hammock. That could have meant anything. But the way she said it, flat, a little bitter, told me more than she meant to. She's not alone, is she? I asked. Another pause. Then, very quietly, I don't know for sure. But you suspect? Ashley didn't speak for a moment. Then, I hate this. You and me both. I hate lying. I hate pretending I don't see what I see. Then don't, I said. Don't pretend. Her voice cracked the tiniest bit. You were always the better one. I didn't ask what she meant. I think we both knew. Later that week, she texted around 10 p.m. Today was awful. Can I vent? I called her instead of replying. We talked for 2 hours. Not about my wife. Not about the trip. But about everything else. Our worst college jobs. Her fear of flying. How I once ate a ghost pepper on a dare and nearly called 911 on myself. We laughed too hard. Then fell quiet. Then laughed again. And I realized something strange. I was starting to look forward to her voice more than the one I used to fall asleep beside. Not because it replaced anything, but because it mattered. Because when she said, just in case, what she really meant was, I'm here. And for the first time since the suitcase rolled out the door, I wasn't waiting on my wife to call. I was hoping Ashley would. It started with a text at 8:42 p.m. Ashley, you eating real food tonight or just licking sadness off a spoon? I stared at the message for a minute, then looked at my dinner, a bag of trail mix and half a flat beer. The insult was earned. Me. I was thinking of pairing emotional ruin with stale almonds. Ashley, that bad, huh? Me. It's just Tuesday. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find her standing on my porch, holding a grocery bag in one hand and a bottle of red wine in the other. I figured you wouldn't say yes if I asked first, she said. You figured right. You gonna let me in? I should have hesitated. I should have said it wasn't a good idea. Instead, I stepped aside. Kitchen's that way. She moved through my house like someone trying not to step on broken glass. Careful, quiet. She'd been here before, Birthdays, holidays, little get-togethers where she and my wife used to huddle in the corner like they were keeping some beautifully innocent secret. But now it was just her and me, and the space between us, humming with something unspoken. Ashley unloaded the bag like it was a ritual. Pasta, garlic, cherry tomatoes, basil. A small loaf of sourdough from that overpriced bakery she always loved. She even brought fresh mozzarella. You planning to seduce me or feed me? I asked, forcing a smile. Honestly, she said, looking over her shoulder. A little of both. It was a joke. We both laughed like it was nothing. Like we didn't both feel the air shift when she said it. While the pasta boiled, I opened the wine. She poured 2 glasses. We leaned against opposite sides of the counter, sipping in silence for a few minutes. You didn't have to do this, I said. I wanted to. You've got your own life. She gave a small shrug. Tonight, this felt more important. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Dinner smelled amazing, rich and warm, with that simple elegance she always swore made a meal taste better. When she plated it, she even gave me the bigger serving. Charity tastes good, I said, taking a bite. You're welcome. We sat at the dining table, just the 2 of us, surrounded by the ghosts of other meals, birthday candles and family photos, the echoes of wine glasses clinking when my wife and I used to celebrate anniversaries neither of us truly remembered. Ashley ate quietly, but not awkwardly. She had a way of filling silence without words. Like just her presence calmed the air around her. At some point, I caught myself watching the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, how her fingers brushed the rim of her glass, how her lips curved just slightly when she was about to tease me. She looked up. What? Nothing. Were you staring at me? No. She smiled. Liar. I looked down at my plate, suddenly flustered. Sorry, I said. Don't be. That hung in the air a little too long. After dinner, we moved to the living room. She curled up on the edge of the couch, legs tucked under her. I took the armchair across from her, a safe distance, like we'd silently agreed to keep things in neutral territory. She set her wine down and exhaled slowly. You look tired, she said. Probably because I don't sleep. Still. I nodded. The bed feels too big. She gave a soft smile. Funny. I always thought it was too small. I raised an eyebrow. She used to complain about how you hogged the blankets. I snorted. So now you're betraying confidences? Only the stupid ones. We both smiled. And then, almost as if the mood sobered in real time, her expression shifted. I didn't come here to make things worse, she said. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Because of her? No, she said. Because of you. She held my gaze. I was worried. Not because you seemed broken, but because you didn't. You looked like someone pretending they were fine, so no one would ask if they were drowning. That landed harder than I wanted to admit. I looked away. You shouldn't be here, I said quietly. I know. I don't want to. I'm not trying to start anything, she interrupted. I just needed to know you were okay. Not because she asked. Not because of loyalty. Because I care. The room was quiet again. Only this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. I keep wondering, I said slowly, what I could have done differently. If I missed something. If there was a moment I could have reached for her and didn't. You didn't miss anything, Ashley said. She just stopped reaching back. I looked up at her, and she was staring at me in a way no one had in weeks, like she saw me. Not the abandoned husband. Not the guy trying to be strong. Just me. You don't have to carry all the blame, she said softly. Someone has to. No, she whispered. They really don't. We didn't touch that night. We didn't kiss. But there was a moment, when she stood to leave, when I walked her to the door, where she looked at me with something between hesitation and hope. Her fingers brushed mine when I handed her her coat, and neither of us pulled away. But nothing happened. Not then. Still, the air between us felt different, like we'd crossed some invisible threshold. And even though the night ended with a polite goodbye, a soft, thanks for dinner, and a click of the door closing behind her, something had shifted. Not loudly, but undeniably. The next call came at 12:17 a.m. Not a text, not a planned check-in, just my phone lighting up in the dark with Ashley's name and that familiar flutter in my chest I was starting to recognize, not as panic, but as something far more dangerous. Hope. I answered on the second ring. Hey, I said softly. Were you asleep? No, I admitted. Haven't made peace with that ceiling crack yet. She gave a tired laugh. God, you and that crack. You calling to insult my home renovations now? Only a little. There was a pause, a long one, but not awkward. If anything, it felt deliberate, like she was building up to something. I couldn't sleep, she finally said. I leaned back on the couch, where I'd camped out again. You okay? Not really. That quiet honesty disarmed me. I keep trying to feel like I'm not in the middle of this mess, she continued. Like I didn't get dragged into something I didn't ask for. But the truth is, I don't even know who I'm loyal to anymore. That made my stomach tighten. You don't owe me anything, Ash. I didn't call because I owed you. Her voice cracked slightly. I called because you're the only person who's been honest with me lately. I sat up. What do you mean? There was a pause. Then she sighed. She told me not to talk to you too much, she said. Said it would confuse things. But I think that was just her way of making sure I didn't find out too much. Too much about what? About what she really left for. The room felt colder suddenly. Ashley went quiet again, like she was battling with herself. She said she needed to fix the marriage, she went on. But Jack, my brother, you remember him? Yeah. Works in real estate, right? Right. He called me last week. Said he saw her at a restaurant downtown. With someone. I swallowed hard. A guy. Ashley hesitated. Yeah. She didn't need to say more. I could feel something inside me shifting, like the floor beneath everything I'd been trying to rebuild had tilted again. I asked her about it, Ashley said. She swore it was just a friend. Said I was being nosy. And when I pushed, she got cold. Like mean. She ever been like that with you before? Not in years. Not since college, when we had a falling out over some guy who ghosted her after 3 dates. She always hated being questioned. Hated feeling cornered. I closed my eyes. Of course. She'd never liked being called out. She turned everything into someone else's overreaction. Mine, her parents, even Ashley's when she once called her out for disappearing on a weekend trip they planned together. She told me to stop calling you, Ashley said quietly. Said it wasn't fair. I didn't say anything. And I told her that what's not fair is leaving your husband with no answers and expecting someone else to clean up your silence. Something swelled in my chest at that. Not pride. Not satisfaction. Something gentler. Like gratitude and grief tangled together. Thanks for not listening to her, I murmured. Ashley sighed. I don't know what this is, okay? I don't know why I keep calling. Why I want to. But I do. That makes 2 of us. The conversation stretched past 1 a.m., and it felt less like a phone call and more like 2 people climbing out of the wreckage of something, trying to find stable ground. We talked about everything, not just the marriage, not just her, but the weird in-between space we were both floating in. Ashley told me about her apartment, how she hated the lighting in her kitchen but loved the old fireplace, how she used to dream about moving to Seattle just to start over. I told her how I used to plan surprise trips for my wife in the early days, only to watch her stop reacting like they mattered. How I'd cooked a 3-course meal for our 10th anniversary, and she'd shown up an hour late, claiming traffic, eyes still smudged with mascara that wasn't mine. We didn't cry. We didn't flirt. But something unspoken kept folding itself into the space between our words. Comfort, recognition, and something else I was still too afraid to name. Do you ever wonder, she asked eventually, if the people who say they love us actually like us? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, she used to talk about you like you were the steady one, the responsible one, the safe one, but it always sounded like a dig. I laughed, bitter and surprised. Yeah, she used to say I was boring with a compliment attached. Ashley exhaled. I think you're consistent. That sounds worse. No, she said. Not when you've had people fall apart on you your whole life. Sometimes consistency is the sexiest thing in the room. That silenced me. Sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean. No, I said. Don't apologize. A beat passed. Would it be weird, she asked, voice suddenly small, if I told you I look forward to your voice at night? I let that sit. I didn't want to rush past it. No, I said. Not weird at all. There was a quiet breath on the line. A long pause. I should go, she whispered. It's late. Yeah, I said, though I didn't want her to hang up. Me too. Neither of us moved. Neither of us hung up. Eventually, she said it again, softer this time. Good night. I whispered it back. And when the line finally went dead, I sat there holding the phone like it was still her voice in my hand. I didn't know what we were becoming, but I knew it wasn't nothing. And I knew, if she called again tomorrow, I'd answer. It happened at 2:04 a.m. My phone rang, shrill and violent in the dark. I sat up so fast I knocked the water glass off my nightstand. It shattered. My heart pounded. Her name was on the screen. Not Ashley. Her. The woman who left me with a suitcase, a vague promise, and a title, Emergency Contact. For a split second, I thought maybe something had happened. An accident. A hospital. That would explain the silence. The coldness. The distance. I answered on the second ring, adrenaline already rushing through my veins. Hello. Laughter. Not hers. A man's voice in the background. Then her voice, slurring softly. Hey you. I froze. Are you okay? I asked sharply. Yeah? Yeah. I'm great. Wait, why do you sound mad? Because it's 2 in the morning, and this is the first time you've called me in 3 weeks. More laughter. The man's voice again, low, close. She giggled. You're so serious, she said. You always get so intense when you're worried. I'm not worried. I'm just. Relax, she cut in. There's no emergency, okay? Just thought I should call, because, she giggled again. Emergency contact. My blood went cold. Is this a joke to you? Silence. Then, in the background, the man's voice again, clearer this time. Come back to bed. I didn't even realize I'd stood up until I felt the cold floor under my feet. My hand clenched around the phone. Who was that? I asked. Oh, don't start, she said, suddenly sharp. You always do this. You think everything is black and white. I told you I needed space. Yes, space. Not another fucking body in the bed. You don't know what I've been going through. You didn't give me a chance to know. You left. There was a long pause. You're always so dramatic, she muttered. I laughed bitterly. You called me. Don't forget that. Wrong number, she mumbled, and then the line went dead. I didn't move. Not for a long time. Just stood there in the dark, the screen of my phone still glowing faintly in my palm, like it was daring me to hope again. But there was no emergency. No broken limb. No stranded airport delay. She just wanted to remind me that I was still at the bottom of her contact list. Convenient, but unnecessary. The call wasn't for comfort. It was for control. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Not her this time. Ashley. Hey. Can't sleep. You? I didn't reply. I called. She picked up on the first ring. Hi, she said softly. Her voice was steady, but I could tell something was off. A tension in the silence between her words. Like maybe she already knew. She called, I said. Ashley exhaled, not surprised. How bad? She was drunk. And not alone. There was a pause. I'm sorry. She said she called because I'm her emergency contact. Ashley let out a dry, bitter laugh. Of course she did. I don't know why I thought. Maybe she'd call because she missed me. Because she realized something. But she just wanted to make sure you were still waiting. I didn't answer. Ashley did it for me. She always had a way of pulling the string right when it started to fray. That made my throat tighten. She sounded happy, I said finally. Happy and careless. Like I'm the idiot for still giving a shit. You're not the idiot, Ashley said. Then what am I? There was a pause. You're the one who stayed. The silence that followed felt different. Not awkward. Not broken. Just honest. I sat back down on the edge of the bed, my fingers still trembling a little. Why does it hurt more now that I know? Because now you can't pretend, she said gently. I swallowed. She called me by the wrong name. Ashley froze. What? She laughed. Said it was nothing. But whose name? I didn't answer. Ashley didn't press. She didn't need to. We stayed on the phone for a long time after that. I told her everything. Not just about the call. About the spiral afterward. About how I stood in the kitchen, staring at the broken glass from my water cup, feeling like it was a metaphor for my entire goddamn life. About how I almost texted my wife to say something brutal, something I couldn't take back. But I didn't. Because I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. She doesn't deserve your rage, Ashley said. She doesn't even deserve your sadness anymore. I let that settle. What do I do with it then? I asked. I'll stay on the phone, she said. Just until it passes. And she did. We didn't talk for a while. Just silence. Just breathing. There was a strange peace in it. This shared quiet between two people who hadn't planned to be this close, but somehow ended up orbiting each other anyway. She didn't try to distract me. She didn't offer hollow comfort. She just stayed. And for the first time since the suitcase rolled out of my life, someone stayed. It had rained all day. One of those slow, soaking storms that made the whole world feel heavier. I spent most of it indoors, pacing, drinking too much coffee, trying not to keep looking at my phone. Not because I expected a message from my wife. That expectation had finally died a quiet death. I was waiting for Ashley's name to light up the screen. And when it finally did, just after 6 p.m., I didn't even read the text. I just called. "You okay?" I asked the moment she answered. There was a hesitation. "No. Where are you?" "Outside your house." I stood so quickly the chair screeched against the floor. I walked to the front window. She was there, standing on the porch in her black coat, hair damp from the rain, holding a Tupperware container in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. I opened the door. "You could have knocked." I wasn't sure if I should. "You're already here." She exhaled, stepped inside. That's the line, isn't it? The line between should and did. She brushed past me, and her perfume hit me like a slow-moving wave, subtle, warm, familiar. I closed the door behind her. The lock clicked, and with it, something inside me followed. The lights were low in the kitchen. I warmed up leftovers. Not hers, not mine, just something that filled the silence, while she poured the wine. We moved around each other with that strange rhythm we'd somehow built. Comfortable. Careful. "This is getting dangerous," she said suddenly, swirling her glass. "What is this? Us. Talking like this. Seeing each other like this. Do you want to stop?" She looked at me. Really looked. No. I didn't say anything. Because I didn't want to stop either. After dinner, we sat in the living room, the couch between us a barely there boundary. "I think I used to envy you," she said quietly, legs curled beneath her. "Me, you and her. The way you looked at her. You made love feel simple." I laughed under my breath. That was just the packaging. Inside it was messier than anyone knew. Ashley nodded, sipped her wine. "Still, you never stopped trying. Even when she stopped meeting you halfway." "You saw that?" "I saw everything." She turned her face toward me. "She didn't deserve you." Her voice cracked a little on the last word. And before I could respond, she leaned back, curling her fingers around her wine glass like it was anchoring her. "She used to talk about you like you were furniture," Ashley said. "Dependable. Sturdy. Always there. I think she forgot furniture can be moved." That stayed in the room for a while. I didn't argue. I couldn't. She was right. She placed her empty glass on the table, turned to face me fully. The rain tapped lightly on the windows now, gentler than before. Ashley looked down at her hands, then up at me. "I have a confession," she said. My breath caught. "Okay. The night you found out, when she called you drunk." I nodded. I was awake. I was waiting for it. "What do you mean?" "I knew she was out with someone. I knew she might call. And I hated it. I hated her for still having that power over you. I wanted her to stay gone so I could. I don't know." Her voice faltered. "So you could what?" I asked. She looked at me then. Open. Unafraid. "So I could have you to myself. Even if it was just your voice on the phone." There was no mistaking what was happening now. This wasn't the cautious, quiet Ashley who'd stopped by with pasta and a bottle of red. This was something else. Something exposed. And I felt it too. The shift. The line we were standing on, right on the edge. "I thought this was just support," I said. "It was." And now. She stood. Took a slow step toward me. "I don't know," she whispered. "But I'm tired of pretending I don't feel something." I stood too. Close enough to feel the warmth of her body. To see the way her pulse fluttered just beneath her collarbone. "I don't want to be someone's rebound," I said quietly. "Then don't be," she whispered back. "Be someone who was there when everything else fell apart." Her hand touched mine. Barely. And I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The kiss wasn't fireworks. It wasn't frantic or desperate. It was slow. Quiet. A question asked with lips and answered in the way my hands gently found her waist, the way hers came up to cradle my face. A sigh. A soft hum. The kind of kiss that doesn't beg for more, but promises it. We pulled apart slowly, breath mingling in the few inches between us. "I didn't come here for this," she whispered. "I know, but I don't want to undo it." "Me neither." She rested her forehead against mine. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel hollow. I didn't feel abandoned. I felt chosen. She stayed for another hour. We didn't go further. We didn't rush anything. We just sat, close, her hand in mine. Sometimes talking, sometimes not. Before she left, she looked at me from the doorway and said, "You know this changes things, right?" "Yeah," I said. And as I watched her walk to her car, I realized something. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I was cheating. Because the marriage I was in, it had already ended. And what had started between Ashley and me, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a beginning. Ashley didn't come over the next night, or the one after, but she called, and something about her voice had changed. Less careful, less hesitant. Like now that the line had been crossed, we were both quietly adjusting to a new gravity, no longer circling something unspoken, but pulled into it. Still, the questions hung there. The ones neither of us wanted to voice. What now? What does this mean? Is this real, or just loneliness dressed up as something sweeter? On the third night, she texted me at 9:41 p.m. Ashley, can I tell you something I've been avoiding? I didn't reply right away. I called her instead. She picked up on the first ring, her breath already caught in her throat. I didn't just suspect she wasn't alone on that trip, she said without preamble. I knew. Silence. I knew from the beginning. I closed my eyes. How? She told me. It was 2 days after the suitcase moment, she explained. My wife had called her while getting drinks at some coastal hotel bar. Ashley could hear music in the background. Laughter. A man's voice ordering 2 bourbons. She said it so casually, Ashley told me. I've got company tonight. Just like that. You asked her who? I said, voice flat. Of course I did. She said it was a friend. Just a friend. But the way she said it, Ashley exhaled. It wasn't friendship. It was flirtation wrapped in lipstick. I sat down on the edge of my bed. The walls felt closer than they had 5 minutes ago. She told me not to tell you, Ashley continued. Said it would just cause unnecessary hurt. That it wasn't serious. But she planned it. Yeah. She said it softly. A confession. Not just of what my wife had done, but what Ashley had allowed to happen. You should have told me, I said. I know. I wanted to be angry. But mostly, I just felt sad. Not even betrayed. Not by Ashley, at least. But numb. Hollow. Confirmed. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Her voice was fragile. Because I think you deserve to know the truth before you decide if this, is real. You've been so careful, so wounded. I didn't want to manipulate you into needing me because you didn't have all the pieces. Something ached in my chest. A slow, unfamiliar ache that wasn't rage or heartbreak. Something like respect. Like understanding. You didn't manipulate me, I said. You were the only one who actually gave a shit. She was quiet for a long time. Then, that call she made, listing you as the emergency contact. That was never about safety. It was about guilt. It was her way of making herself feel like she hadn't abandoned you completely. I know that now. She used to say you'd never leave, Ashley whispered. That you were too dependable. Too kind. She thought she could do anything, and you'd just stay. I let out a bitter breath. She was almost right. Ashley was silent. I could hear her breathing. Slow, steady, waiting. Then I said the words that had been forming since the night we kissed. She was my wife. But she stopped being my partner a long time ago. I know. And you? I asked. What are you to me now? She didn't answer right away. Then, carefully, whatever you'll let me be. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from sadness, but clarity. The lie had finally finished unraveling, thread by thread. And at the center of it was that last honest gesture my wife had made. The emergency contact note. And even that was tainted now. It wasn't thoughtful. It was guilt management. A final breadcrumb to make herself feel like she hadn't burned the whole thing down. Ashley had carried that truth for weeks. And it had crushed her, too. Not because she owed me something, but because she cared enough to feel shame about it. The next morning, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, staring at myself for longer than necessary. I looked tired. Older somehow. But I also saw something else. A man no longer waiting. I didn't text my wife. I didn't rage or demand answers. She had already answered the only question that mattered, not with words, but with absence. She left me as an afterthought. Ashley stayed when she had every reason to leave. That afternoon, Ashley came by. She didn't ask if it was okay. She just showed up, holding a to-go bag from our favorite Thai place, the one my wife used to complain about because coconut milk makes everything taste the same. We ate on the porch, quietly. No music, no wine, just food, shared space, and the heavy but needed comfort of people who'd seen too much and still didn't run. When we finished, I reached for her hand. She let me. I'm not mad anymore, I said softly. At you. At her. At this whole fucking situation. Ashley looked at me, eyes cautious. What are you then? Ready? She didn't smile. Not right away, but her hand squeezed mine. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight begin to lift. Not erased, but shared. The text came on a Friday morning. Just one line. Her. I'm coming home soon. No punctuation. No warmth. No apology. Just a flat declaration, like I was being notified of an Amazon delivery. I stared at the screen for a long time, waiting for my stomach to twist the way it used to whenever she reached out. That nervous jolt, the conditioned flinch of hope. But it didn't come. There was no panic. No aching. Just a quiet, startling clarity. I didn't want her back. I didn't even want to hear her voice. I didn't reply. Ashley came over later that day with groceries, and her hair tied back in that half-messy way I was starting to associate with comfort. She moved through the house like she belonged there now. Not timid, not uncertain. When she reached for the fridge handle and tossed me a can of ginger beer without asking, I realized how different that felt. Not invasive. Not presumptuous. Just right. I saw her text. I said, catching the can. Ashley didn't flinch. Yeah. She's coming back. Ashley leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She didn't ask what that meant. Not for me. Not for us. She just nodded, like she already knew the answer. I don't want to see her, I said. Ashley's voice was careful. You don't owe her anything. I shook my head. No, but I do owe myself something. She studied me quietly. And what's that? Peace. We ate lunch out on the porch again, like we had the day the truth came out. The sky was overcast, and the breeze had that early fall chill, not cold enough for jackets, but enough to make her pull the sleeves of her sweater over her hands. She looked at me across the table, searching for something. What happens when she shows up? I let her in. Ashley's brows lifted slightly. And then, I continued, I tell her it's over. Ashley exhaled slowly. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She looked down at her hands, then back at me. And what about this? She asked, voice soft. What we're doing. I didn't hesitate. This is the only thing that feels real. Ashley blinked. Her eyes were glassy, but she didn't cry. She just reached across the table and slid her hand into mine. Whatever happens, she said, I'm not disappearing. I squeezed her hand. I know. That night, we sat on the couch with a movie playing in the background, the volume low. Something old and romantic, the kind where the conflict feels silly, but the longing is real. She leaned into me halfway through, her head resting on my shoulder. I kissed her hair. She didn't move. We didn't talk about what was next, about how complicated it might get, about what people might say. It didn't matter. What mattered was that, for the first time in months, I was choosing something, not because I was afraid or desperate or lonely, but because I wanted to. Around midnight, I walked her to the door. The house was quiet, warm. She turned to me, hands slipping into the pockets of her coat. I've never done this before, she said. This? Been the person someone turned to after everything broke. I smiled. You're not the rebound. She held my gaze. Then what am I? You're the reason I stopped waiting. Ashley took a step closer, her voice just a whisper now. Say it again. You're the reason I stopped waiting. Her lips touched mine before I could say anything more. It wasn't the first kiss, but it was different. This one wasn't careful or hesitant. It was an answer. She left with a promise to come back tomorrow. Not because I needed her to, but because she wanted to. Because we weren't hiding in borrowed time anymore. We were building something of our own. And when the door clicked shut behind her, I didn't feel alone. I felt chosen. The next morning, I got another text. Her. Landing Monday. Can we talk? I stared at it for a while. Not because I didn't know how to respond, but because I finally didn't feel like I had to. I didn't know her that conversation, but I'd give it to her anyway. Not for her sake. For mine. Closure wasn't for the person who left. It was for the one who stayed too long after. Later that afternoon, I met Ashley at a coffee shop on the edge of town. It was quiet. Warm. We took a booth near the back and talked about nothing for an hour. Books. Work. The weird way birds were gathering on the power lines. At one point, she reached across the table and laced her fingers through mine. No one stared. No one whispered. It just fit. When we got back to the house, she helped me start packing some of my wife's things. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. Just because it was time. Every drawer we emptied, every photo we moved into a box, felt less like a loss and more like a reclaiming. Not of the house. Of myself. And when we were done, we sat on the couch, surrounded by taped cardboard and quiet. Ashley looked over at me, a little uncertain. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. Really? I turned to her, smiled. I'm not waiting anymore. She came home early. Not Monday, like her message said. Sunday. For 15 p.m. No warning. No heads up. No, can we still talk? I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard her key turn in the lock. The sound, once so familiar, made my chest tighten, not from hope, but from habit. The door opened. I turned just in time to see her walk in, rolling the same silver suitcase she'd dragged out of the house weeks ago. She looked rested, tan, her hair lighter, her lips glossy. She wasn't dressed for weather, just for attention. A fitted coat, heels too high for comfort, that same old scarf she used to wear when she wanted to look effortlessly put together. Her eyes scanned the living room. Something changed in her face. The photos were gone. The shelves looked emptier. Boxes lined the hallway. Wow, she said, pausing just inside the doorway. Looks like someone redecorated. Her tone was too casual, like a mask thrown on at the last minute. I didn't offer a smile. Didn't expect you today, I said, setting the mug down. She shrugged. Thought it'd be nice to surprise you. I nodded. You've always been good at surprises. Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a flinch. Can we talk? She asked. You're here. Talk. She stepped in, letting the door close behind her. She walked into the living room like a stranger visiting an old Airbnb, hesitant, assessing, no longer familiar. When she sat on the couch, she paused again, frowning at the missing throw pillows. You took down the art, she said. It didn't feel like mine anymore. Silence. I meant to call more, she started. You didn't. I was trying to figure things out. You could have figured things out here. With me. Her eyes narrowed. I told you I needed space. No, you didn't tell me anything. You packed a suitcase, left a note, and called me your emergency contact like I was your dog sitter. That made her flinch. I didn't mean for it to feel like that. But it did. Another silence. This one heavier. She looked down at her hands. I made mistakes, she said finally. I won't deny that. But I've had time to think. And I realized. I miss this. I miss us. I stared at her, trying to feel something. Longing, regret, even pity. But there was nothing left. Why now? I asked. What do you mean? Why are you saying all this now? Why not a week ago? Or two? When I was breaking under the silence you left behind. She looked up at me, eyes wide. And then as she saw it, me, not the version of me she left. Not the waiting, anxious, guilt-ridden shell she probably expected to find. Still hoping, still begging, still trying to fix what she broke. She saw someone different now. Someone who wasn't chasing her anymore. She sat back slowly. There's someone else. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. But I didn't deny it either. Her lip curled just slightly. Is it Ashley? The room felt suddenly smaller. I said nothing. She scoffed. Unbelievable. What's unbelievable? That my friend. Your friend who stayed when you vanished. She stood up. Don't twist this. I'm not twisting anything, I said. She was there when you weren't. She picked up the pieces you left behind and never once asked for anything. She never lied to me. Never gaslit me. She just showed up. Her eyes were glassy now. So that's it. You're choosing her? I'm choosing me, I said. And she happened to see value in the version of me you kept stepping over. She stared at me like I was speaking another language. I came back to try, she said quietly. To rebuild. You came back because you thought I'd be waiting. She didn't argue. Didn't plead. She just stood there. And for a second, I thought maybe she'd lash out. Say something cruel. Reach for whatever leverage she still thought she had. But instead, she whispered, he's gone. I tilted my head. The guy? She nodded. It was never supposed to be anything. Neither was the marriage by the end. She flinched again. Then she looked around the room. Really looked. As if trying to see if she could still fit here. She couldn't. And she knew it. She didn't stay long. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She simply walked back to the door, hand trembling slightly as she reached for the handle. At the threshold, she paused. Does this mean you hate me? I shook my head. No. She looked relieved, for a breath. But I don't love you anymore either. And that's when the tears came. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a single drop sliding down her cheek. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and walked out. I watched the car pull away. No music. No grand finale. Just an ending that had been a long time coming. I stood in the quiet for a while. Then I walked to the hallway and picked up the last box labeled her. and I carried it to the garage. Not with anger, not with grief, with peace. The morning after she left, for the last time, was quiet. Not silent, not tense, just still, like the house had finally exhaled. Sunlight spilled in through the kitchen windows, brushing against countertops that used to feel like battlegrounds. Every room felt different now. Not haunted, not hollow, just mine. And that stillness? It didn't ache anymore. It comforted. I made coffee, sat on the porch, listened to the birds. And for once, I wasn't listening for the ping of a phone or the sound of keys in the door. I wasn't waiting for an apology that would never come or a closure that had already written itself. I wasn't waiting at all. Ashley arrived mid-morning. She didn't knock. She didn't need to anymore. She walked in carrying 2 croissants, a small bag of groceries, and that same look I was beginning to memorize, soft around the eyes, steady around the edges, like she had built herself just enough armor to survive the world, but left the center open for the people who mattered. "You okay?" she asked, setting the bag down on the counter. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." She turned to me, studying my face the way she always did when she was trying to read the parts one wasn't saying out loud. Did she say anything? Not much. Ashley nodded like that was the answer she expected. Good. We moved around the kitchen together, making eggs, filling plates, stealing glances that didn't carry the awkward weight of what now? Anymore. We knew what now. After breakfast, we stood in the hallway and stared at the boxes stacked neatly against the wall. Her things. All labeled. All taped shut. All ready. "I can help you drop them off," Ashley offered. I shook my head. "Already scheduled a pickup. Monday." She didn't argue. She didn't push. She just slipped her hand into mine. And I realized, again, what I hadn't let myself feel before. The only person who ever really showed up was her. Not just during the fallout, but in every space where it would have been easier to disappear. We spent the afternoon cleaning, windowsills, the upstairs closet, even the garage. She found an old photo of me from college in a dusty shoebox. I looked like a stranger back then. Not because of the haircut or the clothes, but because of the version of me still grinning like life hadn't gotten complicated yet. "You were cute," she teased, holding it up. "Were." She smirked. "Still are." There was no shame anymore. No hesitation. The tension that used to hum between us had settled into something else now. Something warm. Something chosen. Later, we curled up on the couch together. No wine. No television. Just the soft rhythm of her fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. "I keep thinking about how it started," she said quietly. "How weird it is that all of this began because she asked me to check on you." I nodded. "She gave me an emergency contact." Ashley looked at me, confused. "She said it at the airport," I explained. "I left you as my emergency contact." Like that was supposed to mean something. Ashley tilted her head. "Maybe it did." "Maybe," I said. But the irony is, the real emergency didn't come from losing her. It came from realizing I was never going to get her back, not the version I loved. And maybe that's the best thing that ever happened to me. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. I looked over at her. "You stayed." She gave a soft smile. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe because I saw something she didn't. Which was that you deserved more than someone who kept choosing the door." That hit hard. Not like a blow, but like a truth finally settling where it belonged. When the sun began to set, we moved to the porch. Same seats, same sky, different ending. We talked about nothing. Music, movies, her ridiculous cat who refuses to use the expensive climbing tower she bought. At one point, she leaned her head against my shoulder and said, "Do you think this will always feel like a beginning?" I thought about that. "No," I said. "I think someday it'll just feel like our life." And I meant it. I used to think healing would feel like some grand moment. A speech. A confrontation. A dramatic gesture where everything suddenly clicked. But it wasn't like that at all. It was quieter. Softer. It was the slow realization that love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it walks through your front door carrying takeout and bad jokes, and refuses to leave when everything's falling apart. Sometimes love stays. A week later, the boxes were gone. The key she left behind was still on the counter. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. Ashley came over that night, and we sat in the empty living room where old memories used to live. We didn't fill it with anything new yet. No rush. It didn't need to be full to feel complete. Just real. As we got ready for bed, I caught our reflection in the hallway mirror. Two people who hadn't planned for this. Two people who didn't expect each other. But there we were. The man who had been left behind. And the woman who stayed. Not out of guilt. Not out of obligation. But because she chose to. And I chose her, too.